episode 2 of Seemingly Ugly Fabric. We will be making a sassy saddle bag with this beauty right here. Right, so I've got all of my pieces and my hardware, which is 2 rectangle rings and a zipper pull. I'm doing a love heart one because it's got the vintage feel and I just thought it would be cool. So, let me just find some pieces. Let's start with our accent piece. So I cut mine, and I've just realized it's probably going to be the wrong size because I'm pretty sure I cut it on the fold instead of folding it at the fold. So, that's alright. Rather than throwing the whole thing out, because that's excessive, we're going to cut it at the fold. And then that way, it fits. And that is your seam allowance. So let's start there. I am doing apparently I'm really into the antelope color because the last 3 things that I've made have used this same thread. But I'm feeling it. Now it will fit. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold this out and press it open. And then with a top stitch, I'm going to top stitch either side. So this is just now going to be decorative. You can also do it as one piece. I think the original bag I did is one. This one was supposed to be one, but the detail will still look good. So now we're going to take, fine, fall on the floor. We're going to take the ugly fabric that was sent, which is this. And then this should fit perfectly around that edge. It's got a very, very vintage vibe, which is why I picked a vintage shape. Because even if it's not for everyone, I thought the colorings would still suit nicely. Now I'm nearly out of this tape. I might have to stop and get more. Or hunt for it, because there's no more hanging. So I'm just going to not do all the edges. I'm just doing like the main 3 sections to hold it in place. And I am hoping that this will then be enough. I'm going to peel off all the backings of all the pieces. And then I'm going to start at the edge. It's all just stuck to me. I'm going to start at the edge and follow it around. Because the idea is that this is now the same size. Like that. I'm going to smooth it down to make sure it's flat. That is going to work. So, moving all this out of my way. This edge wasn't quite right. And I want to make it sit right. I possibly did the wrong seam allowance looking at that. That's alright. I can make sure that's in the center and then move both sides equally out so that at least it'll be centered no matter what. Like so. There we go. Now I'm going to stitch the inside edge. I'm going to move my bowl of clips out the way. And I'm doing this with a 4 stitch length. Back stitch. Now, because I did that wrong seam at the front, it's not a big deal, but we're now just going to, from the back, stitch 1/8 of an inch to hold it in place. You can be a little bit messy with this. And then we just cut off the excess. You can always cut stuff down. Don't be afraid to have to. I have to do it sometimes. Sometimes it's as simple as I just did the wrong seam allowance, and then sometimes it's more complex, like it moved when I was cutting, or I stuffed up and I need to fix it. It's okay. We're still getting the same end result. Like, it's still fabulous. So don't stress too much about anything like that. Okay, so these are the front and back because they're the same size. And I haven't used any foam on this. I didn't want like a super spongy bag. I just want something clean and simple. This is going to be my back slip pocket. So amongst all of my lining, I went with a linen lining because I thought it would look really nice in like a muted green. These are definitely not my normal colorings, but I do still think I'm really going to like it at the end. So 2.5 is my normal stitch length. And I'm just going to stitch a 1/4 edge. If you wanted to, you could put piping in this seam. It would be easy enough to do. Now this might require an iron. It depends on how well I can pinch it and clip it. And if this doesn't work out brilliantly, I will get up and iron it before I top stitch it. But so far it's going pretty well. So I've got a lightweight non-woven interfacing on my lining pieces at the moment. When I went to buy a new roll of the medium woven I normally get, they were out of stock. So I've bought a different thing to see how it goes. It's definitely not the same. It's probably not quite as good. Like, I do love my woven, but it was also a bit thicker. So this is just interfacing, but it is much lighter than the other one, which I'm not necessarily mad about. I am top stitching with a size 4 stitch length so that all of my top stitching matches. Ah, come on. Snips. I need to sharpen my snips again. That is now our slip pocket. So I'm going to grab one of the back pieces and just sit it on. Now, if you had have put the piping, it would have made like an extra detail, because now it's quite subtle. If you are putting fusible fleece or anything like that on this bag, you could quilt it, which would also give like a really nice look as well. Just as a thought of something extra you could do. I could take the same pattern and make it different ways every day for a week. But I feel like you might eventually get sick of that. But there's always little things you can do. So quilting it would be one. Having this in a different color would be another. But I tried to use as much of the fat quarter as possible. And I did pretty much use all of it. There wasn't really anything left when I was done. So this is my gusset piece. Again, I don't have interfacing on this. And then this one is, where's my lining one? I swear I cut a lining one. That's alright, I'll deal with that in a minute. In a minute. So, I'm going to fold this over. And I'm going to find center top and center bottom. You never know when you need these things. Alright. So now we're going to put right sides together. This is the center here with the mark. So I just line that up in the center. And I'm going to put 3 clips there. Like so. And then I'm going to curve around to the side. And I'm going to start up here and work my way down. I'm putting lots of clips so it doesn't shift. If you did put fusible fleece or foam or something, this would probably sit a bit more firmly because you would be clipping more stuff. Unless you put it within the seam allowance, in which case it would like flex around to exactly where you needed it. Options. And I'm not using interfacing just because I'm trying to be cheap or anything like that. I don't want it big and spongy. That's not how it's going in my head. Like, I just want something simple with clean lines that's pretty. So back to 2.5, and we're gonna stitch and back stitch, and then slowly go around this curve, making sure that nothing's going to pinch, right? Because it's going to try. It's a curve. It always tries. Like right here, you just got to smooth out the bump. It won't pinch if you don't allow it, but it doesn't mean it won't try. And if you get nervous about having your hands this close to the needle, which to be honest I do kind of, I'm so used to having like fake nails in the way, like a buffer to ensure that I wouldn't get my finger. But if that's a problem, grab your sewall and poke that right in front of where you're stitching to help hold it in place. Right? Now before we go hacking off all that excess, make sure that there are no dints or anything. So you can see, even though it's not sitting the best yet, it's because I haven't trimmed it, there's no puckering, there's no pinching. Those are the things we were looking for. I'll put all of them, oops, away and on the floor apparently. Alright, zigzag scissors have fallen off my magnet. These are the Fiskars zigzag pinking, they're pinking shears, but I call them zigzag scissors because it's way more fun. And to be honest, I'm just childish like that. So I'm just going to cut off most of that seam allowance. It's going to allow everything to sit nicer. By having less seam allowance overhang on the inside, it means that the lining can tuck in better. And the zigzag also helps the curve, so now when I turn it out, see how it's already sitting nicer as a curve? It's less jagged, because it's not fighting the inside as much. Alright, let's do the other side. So I'm going to grab my other, well, this is technically the back. And I'm going to find center top and center bottom, because as always, it is useful. This one's a bit thicker. That right there is probably why my snips are blunt, just so you all know. And I always make the clips face the gusset piece. One day I'm going to do the opposite and just see how badly I do. And then I'm going to go to that top edge, line it up, and then bring this curve around. That's 1/2, and then we're going to grab the other half and go again. Clip. Okay. There's that. Now let's just repeat that process to the other side. There's not a lot of pockets and crazy stuff going on with this bag, so it should be a fairly quick sew. I'm just assuming. But like, I've nearly completely made the outside already. Don't you dare pinch. Okay, so this is about to pinch. So what I'm going to do is put the needle down, lift up the presser foot, and then smooth out the part that wants to pinch. If you smooth it out before you pinch it, you won't have an issue. You just got to watch it. But again, I am going to check on the inside to make sure that we have no anythings, and I have, I don't know if I'd call it a pinch. It's not a pinch, right? It's perfectly smooth there, right? There's no pinching. But on the outside, it's just a crease. No, it'll be fine. There's no pinching. Once I reckon I cut this off, it should be better. Now this is going to be a lot thicker because of that slip pocket that's on this layer. So just keep that in mind for your hand when cutting.
Excellent.
So that's that done. Let's move on to some other pieces. The D-rings I'm actually going to put into that seam. That's why I haven't stitched them on. But we can stitch them now. Where's the other one? Here we go. Then I'll do the insides because I've got to stand up and find where the gusset piece is. It's not there for whatever reason. Down the center. Now you can do any size. Oh, that's the end of that. You can do any size D-ring and strap for this bag. I'm doing 1 inch because I have an absolute abundance of 1 inch hardware. But you could do 3/4 inch. You could do a little 1/2 inch strap. It's not a very big bag, so a small strap you would definitely get away with if you wanted to. So I'm sewing that at 3/8 of an inch from the edge, just if you're wondering, which should give us 1/8 of an inch from the center. Maths. I love maths. Bag making in my brain is all just lots of maths. I'm using the skinny one so I don't have to pause the video to go find the other interface, the other sticky tape. Double-sided tape. Still sticky tape, I guess. Alright, so squish it to the center, and then from the top, 3/8 of an inch, and off we go. Because then I don't have to worry about if my center line was crooked. I mean, it's not really. It's pretty bang on, if I'm honest. But if it wasn't, I'm not even looking at it, so it wouldn't really matter. So the join side is going to go around the hardware like so. And then we're just going to add that on. I'm going to have it sticking up a little bit because personally I think they're a bit long. If your brain can't deal with it sticking up over the edge, if you like everything to be flush, just cut it down to the size that you do want. See, such a cute little bag. Little bags, I find, don't really need foam and interfacing and stuff. It's the bigger bags, and that's mainly to give it the strength to stand up by itself. I do think that this one will be fine all by its lonesome though, as you can see. Super cute. Alright, let's go on to the zipper pocket because I can grab the other piece while I am ironing it. This will need ironing. It's not like the other piece. This is also the flap piece. I'm just going to pop that there for a moment. And I haven't drawn my zipper box on this, so I'm going to fold it in half. And this is how you do any Tory pocket for any size bag. So I'm going to draw a line 1/2 inch from the top and then 1/2 inch from that line. And then I like to come in 3/4 of an inch, but ultimately you can do whatever you want. I like to have a bit of wiggle room on the side. So that's my rectangle box. You can do 1/2 inch from the edge. It just means that sewing the side shuts gets a little bit trickier. So that's my rectangle box. I don't know if you can see it. I didn't draw it very heavily. Now the side that you drew on, actually we need to find the center. Yeah, I don't hate this interfacing on the back, but it is a lot lighter. Oh my gosh, stop it. And then the half that we just drew on is the half we're going to find the center for, so we can line those up in the middle. Like this. Now I want it to come fairly down because you've got to remember there's still a seam allowance up there, and I don't want that right at the top. I want it close, but not too extreme. So now I'm going to needle down in that corner. I'm on a 2.5 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch, back stitch, and then forward stitch to lock everything in. And then when I get to this end, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pivot 180 degrees so that I'm facing the opposite way, and then I'm going to lift the needle up and jump to the other side like this, and then stitch, back stitch, and stitch the other line, and then back stitch. That was too many back stitches, by the way. You only need like 2. 1 or 2. You don't need like a full inch. Don't get carried away with your back stitch. I mean, you can do it. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's also not necessary. Some scissors, and then I'm going to fold. I'm going to see that jump stitch. That will annoy us later, so just cut it off now. Trust me on this. All right, fold it in half. Cut that center bit. Open her up, and then I'm gonna get about 3/4 to an inch away from the end, and I'm gonna triangle out that end. You want a big triangle, not a little triangle. Little triangles are harder to keep in place while you sew them down, and bigger triangles don't hurt anybody by being bigger. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I wouldn't make the whole thing a triangle. That's a bit extreme. But, like, decent sized triangles on both ends. So now I'm going to just thread this through the hole and go and iron this down, because I can already guarantee that this is not going to sit nicely. So I'm going to iron this, and then I'll be back. Right. We are now all ironed and fabulous. I also did find my other piece. It was on the cutting table because it is very messy over there today. So we're going to split the zip just a little bit, and then I put in half, and I kind of pinch underneath it to hold it in place. And then we're going to take the other half and push it evenly through the zipper. And then I'm just going to put it on like 1/3 of the way. You don't want to go too far. Now, see how my zipper's all wonky? You can iron them, which is an option. But you can also just use double-sided tape. I've got this really thin stuff, and I'm just going to put it right next to where I'm going to put the zipper. This will stop it shifting, moving, and stretching. So if you find you have rippled zippers a lot, 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape, which is 3mm. I do have this on my website. I have the same stuff as the Garner Sewing Room in America, and it is good stuff. So I'm just going to lay this down, hold it in place, and then start at one end and just work my way along and stick it down so that the zipper is in the middle. Like that. Push it down, and now I can lift that up, and it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to come in front of the zipper. I'm not going to back stitch. Needle down. I'm going to pivot. Because this is nylon teeth, I can just sew over them. If you love metal teeth, which would work for a vintage bag, just make sure you buy the right size zipper, or you have to put those ends and stuff on them so that you don't actually stitch the teeth. Pivot. Needle down. Now I am just going to grab both of those tails and pull them towards me so that they don't get caught up and make a mess underneath. And then I'm just going to do 2 stitches forward and 2 back, and that's it. I can then trim off all the tails I can see, which theoretically is 4, unless you've got loops. Very subtle, the double stitching. You can also have pulled them all through and tied them off at the back. Another very real option for you. So now I'm going to pull this over to the side and sneeze. Hold up. There it is. Alright, so I'm going to stitch the side and back stitch. we're going to leave the bottom of this pocket open because that is where I'm going to turn it through. And then we're going to do the same to the other side. So we pull back the main panel to get to the side bits. Now you can do any seam allowance you like. I usually do between 1/4 and 3/8. Gorgeous. My zip is straight, there's no bowing, there's no anything. So that's that done. I am now going to grab my gusset piece, fold it in half, find the centers. I apologize for the dogs barking. It's actually the other fence, not the normal ones. So we're going to line that up in the center, clip it with the gusset facing up, like that. And the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna fold this up and clip it to itself. However you want to do that, whether it's at the side or whatever, because otherwise it's gonna get in the seam allowance and we don't want that. Because I could feel it trying to get into the seam allowance. So I'm gonna come up to the edge, clip the edge together, and then work my way around that curve. So treat it like the 3D object it is, and it will fit just fine. Alright. I'm just rolling it in my fingers until it lines up, and then I'm going to clip it together. Like that. And then let's do the other side. Clip. Alright. Like so. That's enough clips. Now, if you want to put a tag in, which I think I will, I'm going to grab a little fabric tag and I'm just going to have it over to the side here. So I'm just going to tuck it into that seam like that to make sure that I've got a fabric tag. And now I can see it's going to face the correct way and everything. Though it looks a bit crooked. I must have ironed it crooked. These things happen. Now I don't want it all the way out into the seam because otherwise I will stitch over the words. So, stitch, back stitch. Now generally speaking, the lining is more flexible, so you're much less likely to get puckers in the lining. That's not to say that it can't happen. It is just easier to manipulate, therefore less likely. But that is no reason to like drive as fast as possible. That's how you make mistakes. Okay. Check it. See, it looked like a pinch. If I let go, see how it looks like pinches? But when I straighten it out, it hasn't actually pinched. It's just being weird. That will hopefully go away with the zigzag scissors. I'm going to grab the other main panel, join it together, and I haven't forgotten my magnet. I plan on, I won't use rivet magnets today. Even though I love them, I do need to use up my other ones, but I just am a little obsessed with rivet magnets. They work so well, but it's fine. Work my way around the curve. Hold it all in place. Those dogs are annoying me today. Normally I have music on, you can't hear them. But I can't play music while I do videos, or YouTube doesn't like me. Not to mention, there's a very good chance I'd start singing for you all. Nobody needs to hear that. Alright, one side and the other side. Like that. Perfect. You can unclip this now too so that you don't forget till later. It's not going to get in the way of this side, just the other side. So stitch, back stitch. Also keep an eye on your bobbin. I know I've got to be getting close to running out. This wasn't a full bobbin when I started. Very rarely ever is. I never finish a project and a bobbin at the same time. It's a very, very rare occurrence for me to line up the universe like that. Okay. Then again, we're going to check for pinches. You can just turn the whole thing inside out and check. I'm fairly confident there are none, but it never hurts to check. Don't be so confident you don't check, because that'll be the day you do it. Trust me on that. Alright, I'm going to bring my cart closer. Zigzag scissors. And then, they are sharp enough to cut through this. Funnily enough, they cut vinyl better than soft fabrics when they're blunt. So we want to not have all this excess in the bag. It's both lightening the weight of the bag as well as making sure that the lining will sit inside nicely. If there's less fabric to clash, it's more likely to sit nicely. That's one side. And now the other. You don't have to use zigzag scissors, but because it's a curve, it will help you to do so. So that's entirely your choice. I use them because I have them. It's okay if you don't have them. You can just trim down the excess and then put little kind of nicks with your scissors around the edges, because that'll give the same effect as the zigzag scissors. It just takes a lot longer. Okay, so that's my lining done. Looks awesome. Let's take our flap, and I'm going to stitch it and then install the magnet, because I'm going to also have that facing down. I'm going to do it that way because now the magnet won't distort the fabric. It'll be nice and smooth sewing. Then I can flip it around. Then I can install the magnet in the end. If you needed to, you could cut the slots now. Whatever suits you best. Alright, but I want everything smooth so it's easy to not have the magnet in the way. Alright, stitching at 2.5. Stop sticking my elbow out like that. I don't need more shoulder issues. Chop, chop. Zigzag scissors again. Trim off the excess. It should have sat perfectly flat and glorious. We don't need all this excess. It's going to hurt us when we turn it through. It's really thick in the center because of that center line I did. Don't worry about that. Okay. Done. Should sit quite nicely at the edges. Again, this is another good seam to put piping in if you want to do piping. And let's grab a normal magnet. I'm just going to grab a small one because it is a small, but no, I might grab a big one. Might do a big one. You could do 2 small ones on either side there. Ow. Oh, I don't have a big one in this color. Of course I don't. I just would have thought, I mean, I can do a small one. Just wasn't really the plan. different size gaskets for different size magnets is definitely a thing too. So you can see it's not sitting very well. So before I even install that, I think top stitching is necessary to make it sit where it wants. So what I have to do is fold it over and put clips right on that edge so it sits where it's told. Now the other option is you can Tory squish along there and it might help for a bit, but the clips still need to hold it for the top stitching part. Pull it all back. This is only being so stubborn because of the vinyl accent, but it looks pretty and it's worth it. So you'll also know that the back's doing some weird stuff. It'll all sit flat once it's where it needs to be. Clip and clip. Alright, that's sitting much flatter now. So I'm going to top stitch slowly around this edge. Whatever you do, don't stitch along the top yet, or ever. I mean, you can, but make sure you put your magnet in first. Doesn't that look pretty? And then it lifts up and it'll have a magnet. So now you can see it's sitting flatter. I mean, it's not dead flat, but if I ironed it, there's no lumps or anything. So now I can install my magnet. You're going to want a pen. I love this pen so much. And theoretically, this is your center. So if you fold it in half, it should be your center, which it is, but I'm just proving a point and making sure. So I'm gonna just line this up a little bit away from the edge and in the center. Draw my two lines. Oh, one of them didn't draw. Of course it didn't. Then we need pen knife. I love this thing. I got it from Spotlight. It's just awesome. So I'm going to stab through those two holes. Then I'm also going to grab an extra piece of stabilizer and I'm going to stab through that too. Like that. And I also want to use fray lock because this is just a linen and I don't trust it not to fray. There's lots kind of on there. I like this one's much more expensive, like double the price of the other one I used to have. But the other one was like water and would just pour everywhere and was harder to use. This is more thick and I like it better, like heaps better. Okay. We're going to pop this through the holes. Like that, and then we're going to put the gasket, the extra interfacing on, and then we're going to put the gasket, so it's got like 3 layers, and then squish it down. I'm going to squish it out because it's easier for my fingers. Done. Happy days. Put that away. I'll need it again soon, but in the meantime, let's grab the bag. So the back is where the slip pocket is, and so that's where we want our flap to be. So I'm going to fold it up in half because it's always easy to get in, and then I'm going to put right sides together. Oops, I forgot to find the center of it. See, this is why we always need the center. Center of everything. Right, if you fold it in half, it's easy to get the flap in because the flap is always longer because it's going to go up and around. So I'm going to line up the center with the center because it's obviously very important. And I'm not going to put this side magnet in yet because I don't have the measurement on here, so I'm just going to wait. And also because sometimes when I follow the measurements, I find the bag doesn't quite sit the way I would want it to. So we're going to clip in the flap with lots of lovely clips so it can't move or shift. Then I can take the interior and I'm going to have the zipper pocket at the back as well. So the front's going to be very boring in comparison. The back's got the flap, the slip pocket, and the zipper. You don't have to do it that way. You can spread them out more evenly if that's your thing. But I always like my zipper on the back wall. I just find it easier to function like that. You also, I know a lot of people worry about this. You can open your zipper now if you want to. Personally, I don't find it that hard to open it when it, like from the inside and backwards. But I'm mentioning it so that if you do, now's the time to fix that problem. Okay, so now we're just going to add this pocket into the seam. And you can line up that center point too, because we found the center of everything. Always handy, see? Method to my madness. So now we're just going to stitch the whole way around. You can use whatever seam allowance you want here. I assume it's the same as the rest of the bag, but if you wanted to do it a little bit less, I'm not going to stop you. Up and under. I'm going to do the proper seam allowance because, you know, I should, I suppose. Over the edge. We've still got to make our strap, but I'm basically waiting till the thread runs out before I do that, because I'm sure it's going to run out pretty soon. It does that. We're just going to keep on going around. It kind of sounds like my bobbin will run out soon. Make sure you backstitch too. Now, I'm going to go and reinforce my little rectangle ring strap connectors. So I'm going to stitch over them again and again. It can't hurt because those 2 points will actually carry the whole weight of the bag. And you never know what person you either gift or give the bag to, and then they want to like go collect rocks or something. It'll be quite heavy. Zigzag scissors, you don't have to use zigzag scissors for this because it's technically no zigzagging. There's no curves, but out of habit, I'm just doing the main bits. Oh, that's thick. Maybe vinyl scissors would have been better. The short edges, I'm going to do the vinyl scissors. But you don't want to cut over the second line of stitching you did, because it's there for a reason. I'm just basically cutting off those bits. And then chuck all that in the bin too. Now the fun times, we get to turn it through the pocket. So I always grab the flap on a flapped bag first. I just find it easier. And because there's not a lot of interfacing and foam and crazy stuff, this should turn through pretty quickly. So my little trick that I always do is I make sure that the whole bag is inside the zipper pocket. From here, it's usually crazy easy to pull the bag through. So if you can get the bag all shoved into the zipper pocket, the rest of it usually just falls out like that. You see that? It'll just come out in one big pleh. I don't know what that's called, the pleh. It's just a noise. Right, I'm just poking around those edges. Ugh. Then we're going to shove the lining in. We're not sewing it closed yet, because what I want to do is have it where it sits and then work out where I want to put my magnet, right? So far, super cute. I understand that all the edges aren't nice yet. It's because I haven't squished it all. But you want to make sure it's like semi-nice so that I don't put the magnet in the wrong spot. So the flap needs to be able to go across the whole bag and down like that. And you don't want it to be too tight. So you don't want to pull it down too much, so that there's no wiggle room to put stuff in. But you also don't want it all the way up here because that's too high. I might actually top stitch it before I do that as well. I think it's going to help with the edge of the bag sitting where I'm telling it to. So I'm just going to start here. And I'm on a 4 stitch length. And I'm just going to go around the edge. Now this bit here going over the strap connector might be a bit tricky for people on domestic machines, so just go slowly and it should work out fine. There's nothing too crazy thick in this bag. Alright. When we get back to the start, we're going to backstitch. Obviously, we always backstitch. Unless you want to pull it through and tie it off. That is another very viable option for you. Alright. Make the whole bag sit and pretend like we're finished, even though I know we're not. So that this flap can sit over and down without sitting too far down. I'm thinking there. So, once I've squished it, you might even want a normal pen for this. I'm just going to mark where I want it to be, which is there. Then you can grab your gasket, mark it with the gasket. Now, we're going to put our hand into the lining and then pull the lining away. So when I cut through here, I'm not also cutting the lining. Always close your penknife. Trust me, I have stabbed myself several times. It's actually why I switched to a penknife instead of a craft knife. At some stage, I broke the lid to my old craft knife. And then I used to constantly stab my hand with it, which is not sanitary or healthy in any way, shape, or form. The penknife, because it's retractable, I like it so much better. It means I don't stab myself because I retract it. So never just leave it there and go, oh, come back and use it in a minute, because when you pick it up, I can almost guarantee you will stab your hand. So I'm now just putting the gasket on and then folding that. I'm folding it out because it's easier for my fingers to fold out than in. Now we can close the pocket. So I'm going to pull that out and then just tuck in those raw edges like so. I put my finger at each seam and pull, and it tends to do all the work for you, which is lovely. I appreciate that. Oop. Trim off those tails. Now we've just got the strap, which I'm surprised I got this far on the one bobbin. I mean, I suppose it's not a very big bag. open that, smooth out my pocket. Give it a good squish. That's most of it done. Now I'm not doing an adjustable strap on this just because I always do adjustable straps. But I do have, I've been trying to decide how big I want it. So I've got these two strips. So the first thing I'm going to do is put them at a right angle like this and stitch them together. This is going to make a nice little join that won't be too bulky in any one given spot. Grab some vinyl scissors and we're just going to trim off that. I'm going to leave a little bit of seam allowance because I'm about to stitch that down. But all that was way too much. So, open it out. It's just like doing binding, except we're going to top stitch it. So if you've ever made your own quilt binding, if you're from a quilting background, same principle, but we top stitch because it looks nice. Ta-da! Now I obviously don't want the strap that long, that's excessive. But I thought maybe I could fold it in half here and see how long that makes it. I'm thinking about 40 inches is what I think, because then that'll go over and that'll sit about there. And I think that's a good length. Actually, I'm going to make it 42 because we're going to have a little bit of a fold over. So I'm going to do 42 inches. Pop that over there. Right. Double-sided tape. I got a new one while I was doing the other things. So this is 3/4 inch tape. I like it so much better than 1/2 inch. I don't even miss the fact that I don't have 1/2 inch anymore. I can get away with either 3/4 or 1/4 or 1/8 for zippery things. And if you have wonky zippers, I really do suggest you try the 1/8 inch tape. It does wonders. Okay. Whoops. Luckily that's empty. So I'm going to fold both the edges into the center for this. Oh my god, get off. But you can also just fold it in half and have like one edge that's raw. So I'm going to pinch it and I'm going to squish it. Pinch and squish. Now there's a little bit of a bit there, so I'm just going to chop that off because it's in my way. Pinch and squish. You want to make sure they're really touching in the middle. Like so. Pinch and squish. Now it might be a little bit tricky when we get to this bit, so for this bit I am going to put clips on because it won't hold, I can promise you. It's too thick and it wants to be angry at me. So this is actually a really fun join to do if you're going to do like a rainbow strap, which I do promise to do one day soon. It's going to take a long time, maybe I'll do it as a whole separate video. A rainbow strap. I just gotta find a bag I want. Oh, actually. Oh, I think I just got inspired for that. Alright. Either way, on a 4 stitch length, we are going to needle down at, so again, 3/8 of an inch away from the edge makes it 1/4 of an inch in the center. And that's where I'm gonna stitch from, right sides up. Now if you can't do this with your fingers, grab yourself one of these bad boys, put that there, and then you just run it up against it. See, I knew I was going to run out of bobbin thread. New bobbin has been achieved. So I'm just going to come back here and I'm going to stitch 2 stitches. And then because I know my back stitch is going to give me grief, I'm just going to go back into that first stitch and continue down. I'm going to come across the edge, swivel back, and I'm going to stop here just so I can trim off the tails so that they don't get caught up on the other side as I go past. Alright, and we're off. Having this is super handy if you can't do it with your fingers. The downside is it really doesn't work if you've got clips on. So I'm going to put my needle down, I'm going to go across because I did it at the last one, and then back stitch. And that way both ends are even and fabulous. Look how smooth that is. Ah. Right, now, do I want strap-ins? I think today I won't, just because I always do. So we're going to pop that in to the inside like this. So, rivet spacing template. I love this thing so much. It comes in 1 inch and 1.5 inch. I probably should have done a 3/4 inch option too. So you just line it up, grab a pen, draw it where you need it. Now I use the same, because mine are thick, I use the same measurements, and they're now got like a slight darkness to them so that I know which ones to do. But you can always just count. I used to count until it became apparent that I can see it. So, hole punch. And now I'm just going to punch those holes individually. All right. Then we grab some rivets. And you can even stab it through one side. And then come around to the other, pop the cap on, bring it up and around, and then around and in. And then when you hold it there, you want to make sure there's no twists anywhere. While this is not my cup of tea, this is actually, I think, quite a cute bag for some ugly fabric that I really didn't like. All right. Now we just need to grab my other press and squish them down. 1 and 2. Now we're not quite finished, we've just got the final touch up, which is thread zapper. So the main ones I want to focus on are right here at the front because I don't want to see them. Beautiful. And then I'm going to come to where that joint is because I ended up with a weird loop. So I'm just going to trim the loop like that so I can get to it. Trim it down, maybe, and then remove the fluff with this. Seems easy enough, right? There's another one. So I'm going to actually, it's got a little hole in the middle. I don't know if you can see that or not. But I actually put the thread in the hole and then drag across to kind of cut it. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's too tall. Like that. So that way you don't get any kind of marks. Fabulous. It's gone from ugly to like vintage cute. I can see someone that, oh, actually, we've got some more threads. It is important to go along and do this because people will notice them. probably won't bother them like it bothers you, but they will still see them. So it is still, I think, important to make sure that they go away. There we go. That's better. Awesome. One vintage cute bag. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode, and I'll do something crazy and wacky for the next one. Bye, guys.